Imagine a world hidden right beneath your feet, a world of silent, dark corridors that defy every law of history. We aren't talking about modern subways or dusty coal mines. We are talking about massive, ancient tunnels carved so perfectly into solid rock that they make modern engineering look like child's play. Even today, experts admit that recreating them without heavy machinery and high explosives would be nearly impossible. Yet they have been there for thousands of years. While textbooks tell us that ancient people used simple stone hammers to dig holes for protection or food storage, these structures tell a different story. Some of these passages are so deep, so unnervingly straight, and so polished that they serve no logical human purpose. When you run your hand along a wall that feels like smooth glass, or look down a perfectly circular shaft that never bends, you realize these weren't built by primitive hands. Was it a lost technology, or perhaps a builder that wasn't even from our world? If you're ready to dig into the mysteries that history books are afraid to mention, hit that subscribe button and join our community. Our journey begins in the dense, humid jungles of Ecuador. In the 1960s, an explorer named János Móricz stumbled upon a secret that shook the scientific world. He claimed to have found a gateway to a subterranean empire, a network of tunnels stretching for hundreds of kilometers, linking Ecuador to Peru and possibly even Brazil. Móricz didn't find this on his own. He was led there by the Shuar Indians. For this tribe, these tunnels weren't a discovery. They were an ancient legend, a divine labyrinth built not by men, but by the gods themselves. According to the accounts, these underground halls were massive, with walls as smooth as glass and stone spaces carved with such precision that no known South American culture could have achieved it. When these claims first surfaced, mainstream science was quick to dismiss them. Scientists argued that these were just karst caves, natural limestone cavities formed by water over millions of years. To them, there was no mystery, just ordinary geology. Because no concrete evidence was provided at the time, the story was eventually forgotten. In the 1970s, author Eric von Däniken mentioned these tunnels in his book, claiming he had seen them himself. However, it was later revealed he hadn't actually entered them, which ruined the story's credibility. For years, the case was considered closed, dismissed as a total fantasy. But in the 1990s, the real shock came. Scientific expeditions discovered a truly vast underground system in that region of Ecuador, the Cueva de los Tallos. The scale was enormous, with halls rising 50 meters high and corridors stretching deep into the darkness, far beyond what the team's equipment could measure. This is where geology failed to provide clear answers. The first mystery was the shape of these passages. Natural caves are rugged and uneven, but many of these corridors had rectangular cross-sections, straight walls, and flat ceilings. While geologists say water can theoretically cut through rock along cracks, finding such long, straight passages in nature is almost unheard of. Even more shocking were the tool marks. These smooth, parallel grooves were too regular to be the result of natural erosion.
An engineer on the team with 20 years of mining experience stated he had seen such marks hundreds of times on walls made by mechanical drills and nowhere else. The third mystery is the sheer scale of the cave. While the explored section spans several kilometers, echolocation shows the system goes much deeper, so deep that modern equipment couldn't even reach the bottom. The local Shuar Indians claim these tunnels stretch to the very edge of the earth, and their ancestors could travel for days without seeing the end. An incredible fact about this site: in 1976, a massive British expedition visited the cave.
It wasn't just a few hobbyists, it was a team of 100 experts, including geologists and zoologists. The chairman of this expedition was none other than Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. Why would a man who had walked on the lunar surface spend weeks in an Ecuadorian jungle cave? Officially, he was just curious, but after returning, he remained strangely quiet, only calling it one of the most amazing experiences of his life. The second mystery takes us to Derinkuyu in Turkey. Cappadocia is famous for underground cities, but Derinkuyu is the deepest of them all. It descends 18 levels, reaching 60 meters underground. This wasn't just a hiding spot, it was a fully functional city for up to 50,000 people, complete with kitchens, schools, churches, and even stables. Official history says early Christians built it to hide from Roman or Arab invasions. While this explains why they used it, it doesn't fully explain how they built it. Even though the volcanic rock is soft, carving out an 18-story city that can house tens of thousands of people with hand tools is a massive engineering feat that still raises questions today. This isn't just a matter of carving out a few rooms. Derinkuyu required thousands of cubic meters of rock to be cut, hauled to the surface, and disposed of. Every level consists of hundreds of rooms linked by corridors, with ventilation shafts that drop 60 meters to ensure air reaches the very bottom. Even the water system was a masterpiece of engineering, designed so that enemies on the upper levels couldn't poison the supply for those below. This wasn't the work of panicked farmers. It was a massive, sophisticated project, and we still don't know who the original architect was. But the most shocking discovery isn't the city itself, it's the tunnels leading out of it. In 2014, archaeologists found long corridors on the lower levels that connect Derinkuyu to other underground cities. One specific tunnel runs for 9 kilometers to reach the city of Kaimakli. This passage is carved with a uniform shape, large enough for a person with luggage to walk through, and features its own ventilation and locking stone doors. While official science suggests these were dug slowly over generations, the math tells a different story. Removing thousands of tons of rock for a 9-kilometer tunnel would leave massive piles of debris on the surface, yet no such piles exist in the surrounding area. It's as if the rock simply vanished or was moved to a place we haven't found yet. The mystery goes even deeper. Some researchers believe the known cities are just the top floors of a much larger network stretching across the entire region.
In 2013, construction in the city of Nevşehir accidentally uncovered another massive underground city, one so vast and complex that it hasn't even been fully investigated yet. Each year, new structures emerge, suggesting that what we see on the surface is only a fraction of a massive subterranean world. The mystery deepens when we ask one simple question: why so deep? If the goal was just to hide from a passing army, 2 or 3 levels would have been plenty. You block the door with a heavy stone and wait. But why dig 18 levels down? Why build 9 kilometers of tunnels connecting to other cities? And why create a ventilation system capable of supporting 50,000 people for months? In all of history, no enemy in this region, not the Mongols nor the Arabs, ever conducted an underground siege. So who or what were these people really hiding from? This brings us to the third mystery, the Ravne tunnels in Bosnia. This story started in 2005 with one of the most controversial claims in archaeology. Researchers Samir Osmanagic announced that the hills near Visoko weren't hills at all, but the world's oldest pyramids covered in soil. Mainstream science laughed, calling it pseudoscience and labeling the hills as simple natural formations. They argued that Bosnia never had a civilization capable of such a feat. But the laughter stopped when a massive system of underground passages, known as the Ravne tunnels, was discovered right beneath the hills. These weren't natural caves or old mines. They were clearly man-made, constructed from a strange mixture of rock, sand, and clay. While official science tried to claim they were just ancient mines, that theory quickly fell apart. There are no signs of ore being extracted, no marks from picks on the walls, and no piles of waste rock. If these weren't mines, then what was their true purpose? Miners always leave behind very specific traces, but in the Rovne tunnels, there are none. First, mines follow the vein of the ore. They twist and turn wherever the minerals lead. These tunnels, however, run in perfectly straight lines at a consistent depth, suggesting they were built for transportation or communication rather than mining. The second anomaly is the air quality. Independent tests have revealed a massive concentration of negative ions inside the tunnels, levels tens of times higher than what you find on the surface. Despite the lack of a complex ventilation system, the air remains fresh and highly ionized. Geologically, there is no explanation for why this specific rock formation would produce such an effect in a confined underground space. But the biggest shock came with radiocarbon dating. Organic material found within the tunnel debris was dated to be over 30,000 years old. According to official history, Europe at that time was home to Cro-Magnons, primitive hunters who lived in caves and painted on walls. They didn't have the tools, the social organization, or any logical reason to carve out kilometers of sophisticated underground passages. Official archaeology argues that the age of a piece of wood doesn't prove the age of the tunnel. They suggest the wood could have been introduced much later by accident. However, when multiple samples from different parts of the massive system all point to the same ancient date, luck becomes a very weak explanation.
Every new digging season at Visoko unearths more sections of these tunnels, raising questions that mainstream science is still struggling to answer. The fourth and perhaps most mind-boggling mystery takes us to China, the Longyu Caves. This discovery happened by accident in 1992 when a local farmer decided to drain a pond hoping to find fish. Instead, he uncovered a passage to an underworld that had been forgotten for centuries. When the water was finally pumped out, it revealed 24 massive underground halls carved directly into solid sandstone. Each hall is tens of meters wide and up to 30 meters high, with the roofs supported by giant stone pillars that are part of the original rock. The scale of this project is almost impossible to grasp. Approximately 1 million cubic meters of stone were removed to create these spaces, the equivalent of 400 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Yet the first mystery is, where did all that stone go? There are no mountains of rubble or piles of debris anywhere near the village. 1 million cubic meters of rock simply vanished. The second mystery lies in the tool marks. Every single wall in the halls is covered in identical, parallel grooves. These aren't the chaotic marks of a handheld chisel or axe. They're perfectly even, carved at the same angle with consistent pressure across the entire surface. They look remarkably like the work of a modern mechanical cutter, yet official science dates these caves back 2,000 years, a time when such technology supposedly didn't exist. Beyond the labor, the engineering is staggering. The pillars weren't added later. They were left behind as the surrounding rock was carved away. This required advanced blueprints and complex load-bearing calculations to ensure the entire mountain didn't collapse on the workers. The final question is, why? Despite being right next to each other, the 24 halls are not connected. Each hall is a separate pit with its own entrance. In some places, the walls separating the halls are only half a meter thick, yet they were never broken through. If these were meant for living or storage, why keep them isolated? If they were meant to be secret, why make them so grand? The builders knew exactly where the neighboring hall was, stopping just in time to leave a wall thin enough to be dangerous, yet strong enough to hold. But why build 24 separate pits instead of one massive underground complex? Why separate them with walls but no doors? These halls don't function like houses, temples, or military bunkers. Their true purpose remains a complete mystery. Perhaps the most troubling question is the missing history. China is a civilization famous for its meticulous record-keeping. For thousands of years, they recorded everything, every tax, every flood, every major construction project. Building the Longyu Caves would have required thousands of workers and years of labor, yet there is not a single line in Chinese history about them. It is as if they were built by someone who left no trace, or someone who existed long before Chinese history began. Local residents who have lived here for generations believe these caves were never built by humans. They claim the caves have simply always existed.
The village elders say their grandfathers avoided the place, believing it to be impure. They even speak of a strange humming or singing sound that echoes from the depths before a rainstorm. When scientists placed microphones inside, they actually captured a low-frequency hum. While science explains this as atmospheric pressure resonating in the cavities, the locals have their own explanation. It is the sound of the caves breathing. Despite over 30 years of research, we are left with 1 million cubic meters of vanished rock, mechanical tool marks that shouldn't exist, and a deep, unexplained silence in the historical records. 4 tunnels. 4 underground systems are located on different continents, carved into different types of rock and separated by thousands of kilometers and thousands of years. From Ecuador and Turkey to Bosnia and China, these structures challenge everything we thought we knew about our ancestors. Despite being separated by oceans and centuries, these 4 underground systems share patterns that are impossible to ignore. They point to a reality that mainstream history isn't ready to accept. First, consider the scale. These aren't simple basements or storage rooms. We are talking about millions of cubic meters of excavated rock and kilometers of passages plunging deep into the earth. This wasn't the work of a few families. These were massive state-level projects that required resources and organization comparable to modern-day engineering. Second, the precision is haunting. The uniform cross-sections, the perfectly flat ceilings, and those mysterious parallel grooves on the walls have left professional mining engineers baffled. This level of quality suggests a tool that functions with the consistency of a machine, something ancient civilizations supposedly didn't possess. Third, there is the unknown purpose. While Daringkuyu might have been a refuge, why the extreme depth? And what about the others? They weren't homes, they weren't tombs, and they weren't mines. They exist without a clear reason, as if they were built for a logic we no longer understand. Finally, there is the silence of history. Not a single chronicle or ancient document mentions their construction. It is as if they appeared out of nowhere, or were built so long ago that even the oldest civilizations forgot they were there. It raises a disturbing possibility. Perhaps they weren't built by the people who wrote our history at all. You could call them natural caves. You could say ancient people just had more patience than us. But when 4 different systems on 4 different continents reveal the same mysteries, scale, precision, no purpose, and no records, coincidence starts to feel like an excuse. Behind these tunnels lies a shadow of something that came before us, something that mastered stone in ways we have only recently rediscovered, only to vanish and leave behind nothing but these silent, smooth, and waiting corridors in the dark. If these underground secrets surprised you, subscribe and join our community. By the way, what do you think? Were these tunnels built by humans or someone else? Be sure to share your opinion in the comments. See you with the next mystery.